Tonight we are looking at 3 horrifying cave diving stories that went horribly wrong. In Norway, a frozen regulator empties a tank at 70 meters. In France, a diver's own memory swims her up the wrong tunnel. In Russia, half a ton of ceiling lands on the way home. Each story starts with confidence and ends in chaos. As always, viewer discretion is advised. On February 21, 2026, Anders Vik rolled backward into the spring pool at Plura, the longest underwater cave in Norway, kilometers of flooded passage running beneath the frozen floor of Plurdalen. The water was 4 degrees. It is 4 degrees in summer too. In winter, the only difference is the ice you cut to get in. He was diving with his regular partner, down the entrance slope, along the main line to the 70-meter gallery, and back out on a plan that kept them under the ice for 2 hours. Anders was 41 years old, a power station engineer from Mo i Rana, who had logged 600 cave dives in 11 years, the most methodical diver in his club, and the one who taught the gas planning classes. His habit was the rotation. Every 10 minutes he breathed each of his regulators in turn, because the mouth, he told his students, finds what the gauge cannot. Plura was an old friend, 100 dives of familiar line. What he didn't know, a week of ice diving had been working on the guts of his primary first stage, and the 70-meter gallery was where that work would finish. Here is what you need to understand about cold water regulators. When one fails, it does not simply stop. It fails open, a free flow, and empties the tank it was guarding into the cave. At 70 meters, the gas comes out 5 times faster than at the surface, and a full 12-liter tank can bleed out in about 4 minutes. A diver budgets gas in thirds. The cave only honors the maths of the tanks that stay closed. The dive-in ran clean, white marble walls sliding past, the line taut and familiar, 2 torch beams moving through water so clear it read as air. Nothing failed on the way in, because the way in asked so little of the machine. They reached the 70-meter gallery at minute 28, on schedule. What they didn't know, inside his primary first stage, breath by breath, the cold had been building a small architecture of frost. At the deep turn, that is when the rotation earned its keep, because Anders swapped regulators on the habit's clock, and heard his primary clear its throat behind him, a thin hiss under the exhaust. 10 seconds later, the hiss became a roar. The first stage had frozen open, and his back gas was leaving without him. What his partner saw across the gallery, a wall of silver climbing the ceiling, and a torch beam standing perfectly still inside it. Panic lives in the sound of your own gas escaping. The first stage had failed. His gas was pouring away. The gauge fell. The roar filled everything. Anders reached back and shut the valve, a dull thud through the water, and the roar died. The gauge had already given up a third of the tank. Because this is the arithmetic of a free flow at depth, the schedule home called for 40 minutes. The decompression stops alone called for 30 minutes. What remained in his doubles, breathed gently, at depth, was worth perhaps 15 minutes. His partner did the drill without being asked. Long hose out, regulator passed across, 2 divers breathing 1 healthy set of tanks. And the arithmetic moved with them. 2 divers empty a tank twice as fast. The numbers that had covered 1 diver's stops now covered half of them. Watch a diver do the hardest right things underwater. First, they turned instantly, no argument, no second look at the gallery, and swam the long kilometer back with the shared hose between them, slow and level, burning nothing on speed. Second, at every stop, Anders ran the numbers again, the scrape of his pencil on the slate the only sound between breaths. And at every stop, the answer came back smaller. Put yourself on that line for 1 minute of it. Water at 4 degrees, a ceiling of stone and ice above you, a friend's regulator in your mouth, and a gauge falling toward a number that means one of you is not finishing the stops. At 30 meters, Anders did the last piece of gas planning of his life. The shared tanks would carry 1 diver through the stops. They would not carry 2. He pressed the long hose back into his partner's hand, held the OK sign until it was answered, and swam up, past the stops, toward the light in the ice. Anders Vik surfaced conscious, 11 minutes after handing back the gas, having skipped 30 minutes of decompression. The bubbles were already in his blood. He told the surface team to be ready for his partner, and then he sat down on the ice. He died in the rescue helicopter, 2 hours later, on the way to the chamber at Bodo. The inquest ruled the death an omitted decompression ascent, following a cold water free flow, and noted 1 line for the record. His partner completed every stop on the gas Anders gave back, and climbed out of the water unhurt. The valley still holds its winter quiet, and divers still cut the ice at the spring pool, patient as the water itself. The inquest's report recorded both numbers side by side. 30 minutes of stops skipped by the diver who died, every stop completed by the partner who survived on the gas he gave back. The club he taught changed its law that spring. Below 6 degrees, every deep dive carries a staged bottle at the first stop, so a tank that fails can never argue with the tank that gets you home. The mouth finds what the gauge cannot, Anders used to tell his students. So what did his mouth find at 70 meters? The truth, 10 seconds early. The rotation gave the warning. The cold took the margin. You cannot rotate your way out of arithmetic in the longest underwater cave in Norway. You can only carry more of it, and his club now does. On April 26, 2026, Clairefontaine dropped with a soft splash beneath the green surface of the Soleil River and swam into the Ressel, a cave so dive that French clubs have logged 10,000 descents into it. Kilometers of drowned limestone tunnel under the farmland of the lot. The river light gives up within meters. Past that, the cave is a country of torch beams. She was diving alone, as instructors there often train. A full tank on her back, a regulator she serviced herself. Down the main line to the second junction, and home on a plan that turned her around at 40 minutes. Claire was 38 years old, a cave diving instructor from Cahors who spent every Sunday underwater and had logged 1,500 dives in 12 years. The one the local clubs called when a line needed relaying. The one who kept a worn paper map of the Ressel taped inside her van door. And the one who loved the black corridors best. Her habit was the spool, a small orange reel clipped at her chest, because a diver, she told her students, should never leave one line without laying another back to it. The Ressel was her home cave, 500 dives of the same black corridors. What she didn't know, a week earlier, a survey team had relayed the main line through the second junction, and the geometry she carried in her head no longer matched the geometry on the floor. Here is what you need to understand about a dark cave junction. It is not a signposted crossroads. It is a knot of line on a rock in black water, read by hand and memory. Move the knot 3 meters, and every diver who navigates by memory will swim past their own turn without feeling it. A diver trusts the map in her head. The cave only honors the line on the floor. The dive-in ran like clockwork. Torch beam on pale walls, the main line sliding through her fingers, tunnel after tunnel of familiar dark. Nothing failed on the way in, because the way in never asked her to choose a direction. She reached the second junction at minute 19, on schedule. What she didn't know, the turn she remembered now belonged to a different branch. At the junction, that is when memory failed her, because her hand found the knot exactly where a knot should be, and she took the left line, the way she had taken it 500 times. The left line was no longer her line. What the cave knew, and she did not. Every fin kick was now carrying her up a branch with no exit, further from the turn she thought she had already made. Panic lives in a tunnel that stops matching your memory. A boulder she did not know. Her mental map had failed. The passage was narrowing. The floor was wrong. Because this is the arithmetic of a wrong turn. Her plan turned her around at 40 minutes. Her gauge crossed that line in a tunnel she had never seen, with the exit behind her at an angle she could not name. She stopped swimming. She let the silt settle. And she read the line under her glove like Braille. Watch an instructor do the hardest right things alone. First, she did not trust her memory again. She trusted the protocol, and the protocol says a line tells you its direction if you ask it properly. Her glove found a line arrow, a small plastic wedge clipped to the braid with a click she felt rather than heard, and its point told her one true thing in the whole black country. The exit is that way. Put yourself in that tunnel for 1 minute of it. Water you cannot see through settling around you, a gauge eating into reserve, a plastic arrow under 2 fingers, and the discipline to believe a piece of line over 500 dives of your own remembering. She followed the arrows home hand over hand, her regulator hissing its slow rhythm into tunnels that echoed nothing back. She checked each knot against her fingers instead of her memory, spending her gas like a woman counting coins. At the second junction, she passed the relayed knot and understood the whole wrong turn in a single touch. The survey team's new line, 3 meters from where her mind had kept it. The green river light met her at minute 68, and she surfaced into the Soleil with 11 minutes of reserve, holding the main line until her boots found the riverbed. The club's incident report recorded a wrong turn on a relayed junction. A diver alone passed her turn point who did not panic, and closed with the line every Ressel regular now knows by heart. She came home on the arrows, not on the memory. A laminated notice hangs at the riverbank now, dated and signed. Junction 2 relayed. Read the line, not your habits. The most dived black tunnel in France still swallows the river light within meters, and the survey team still move its knots as the cave demands. Claire still teaches the navigation drills there, and she has added one to the syllabus. Check every knot as if you had never been in the cave before. A diver should never leave one line without laying another back to it, she still tells her students. So which line saved her in the black? The one on the floor. The report recorded it plainly. She surfaced after 68 minutes, with 11 minutes of gas to spare, and she survived on plastic arrows and protocol, not on 500 dives of memory. On January 17, 2026, Pyotr Baranov dropped through a hole in the Ural winter and into Orda Cave, the longest underwater gypsum cave in the world, 5 kilometers of white crystal galleries under the frozen fields of Perm Krai. The water was 2 degrees. The visibility was 50 meters. He was diving with his regular partner, out along the main line to the far galleries, 40 minutes of swimming each way, with a return planned inside 90 minutes. Pyotr was 45 years old, a mining surveyor from Perm, who had logged 800 cave dives in 14 years, the most conservative planner in his team, and the one who wrote the gas tables the others copied. His habit was the drop, a full stage bottle clipped off at the halfway junction on every dive, because gas you carry, he told his students, is gas you can lose. Gas you stage is a promise the cave keeps for you. Orda was his second home, 100 dives of crystal water. What he didn't know? Above the halfway junction, a gypsum block the size of a car door had spent the winter coming loose, one thaw at a time. Here is what you need to understand about gypsum. It is not granite. It is a soft mineral that water dissolves season by season, and a cave cut in it is a building forever being quietly unbuilt. Orda's white galleries shed blocks the way old houses shed plaster. A diver plans thirds for the gas he carries. The cave decides what happens to the gas he leaves behind. The dive outran like a postcard, white walls and 50-meter focus, the line a dark thread through crystal, 2 torches barely needed. At the junction, he clipped off the stage bottle, patted it once, and swam on. Nothing failed on the way out, because the ceiling was not finished loosening. They turned at the far galleries on schedule, at minute 41, each with 2/3 of their back gas in reserve. What they didn't know, 11 minutes earlier, somewhere behind them, half a ton of ceiling had let go with a boom that traveled through the rock and never reached them. At the halfway junction, that is when the plan met the cave. Because the water ahead was not crystal anymore, it was a slow white bloom of gypsum dust, still settling. The block had come down across the junction ledge. Under it, flattened into the floor, lay the stage bottle, and the line ran beneath the rubble with it. What his partner saw in the settling dust, the promise the cave was supposed to keep, pinned under half a ton of ceiling. Panic lives under a ceiling that has already fallen once. The stage was trapped. The line was buried. The dust kept blooming. Home was on the far side. Because this is the arithmetic of a lost stage. The swim home needed 40 minutes. His back gas, at thirds, held roughly that, with the stage bottle as the margin for everything the cave might still do. The margin was now part of the floor. Watch 2 divers do the hardest right things in falling dust. First, nobody dug. A hand under shifting rubble is how one trapped bottle becomes one trapped diver. Second, they found the line's far side beyond the rubble, tied a jump spool across the fall, and crossed above the block one at a time. Slow fins, hands off the ceiling, while the gallery creaked around them like a hull under load. Put yourself over that rubble for 1 minute of it. 2 degrees of water in your gloves, white dust erasing your torch beam, a ceiling that has already proved what it can do, and your margin lying under it, staying behind forever. The swim home was 40 minutes of discipline. Breathe slow, fin long, spend nothing on fear. His regulator hissed its steady rhythm into the crystal quiet. Pyotr ran the numbers on his slate every 5 minutes, and every 5 minutes the thirds held. The last 100 meters ran under the entrance ice, toward a pale green ceiling of daylight, on gas the plan had promised, and the plan delivered. They surfaced through the hole in the winter with 11 minutes of reserve between them, and sat on the ice in the -20 air, watching their own breath, saying nothing at all. The regional club's report recorded the fall, the bottle trapped under roughly 500 kilograms of gypsum, and 2 divers home on thirds with margin to spare. The junction was resurveyed that spring, and the stage drop moved 50 meters back, out from under anything the winter is still unbuilding. The longest underwater gypsum cave in the world goes on dissolving, one season at a time, patient as water. Divers still cut the January hole and drop into the crystal, and Pyotr still clips a bottle at the new junction on every dive, 50 meters out from the old one. Both divers survived on the plan, the report recorded, with 11 minutes to spare. Gas you stage is a promise the cave keeps for you, he still tells his students. But now he adds the second half. Sometimes the cave breaks the promise. So you plan as if the promise were already broken. And the day Orda broke it, that plan swam 2 divers home.